countries in Africa, 54 of them, have been independent for the last 50 years. Okay, they're very young. Okay, they are not established 200-year-old free independent countries. 50 years. 50 years is very, very small in the lifetime of a country. First, in the last 50 years, Africa has got more than $600 billion of aid. In the last 50 years, the dominant view of Africa has been a basket case. Something you don't invest in, something which has health problems, something which has governance problems, something where you have corruption, and somewhere you have military dictatorships. That's the dominant view. But that view has changed in the last decade. In the last decade, Africa has grown at more than 5% GDP, a decade of 5% growth. That's outstanding growth. And it's expected to be at that level over the next decade. Even better. What has changed now? The rule of law, open elections, democracy, power to the people. Those are the things which have changed. That's what's the big difference in the last decade compared to before. And the other big thing which has changed is the impact of technology on consumer lives, specifically mobility. Okay, that's one big difference. If you look at mobility now as a simple stat, a 10% increase in mobile phones grows the GDP by more than 1% overall. Fixed lines grow it by about 1.5%, even in developed economies. Take Africa, rich in natural resources, but it does not compete in the full line of natural resources. For example, take diamonds. Botswana and Namibia, great producers of diamonds. The same diamond is cut in India and placed in Belgium. So Africa participates only at the entry. Take Western Africa, produces 70% of the world's cocoa, 70%. The total chocolate market in the world is about $75 billion. What West Africa gets is $4 billion out of that, 5%. So it does not compete in the value chain. It's great to have rich mineral resources, great to be gifted by God, but you need to participate in the value chain, which is where I believe the next decade will be in terms of journey. Third, cotton. Uganda, big in it. But where is it finished? In China. So my first argument would be, Africa is immensely blessed and gifted. It needs to participate through innovation in the rest of the value chain. That's where true value will be created for the African continent. Okay, we have a real challenge in infrastructure. The basic infrastructure and utilities industries have been challenged. There's no doubt about that. And Africa requires significant investment in infrastructure in order to realize this potential. If it does not invest strongly in infrastructure, a lot of the potential will just remain potential, will just remain on paper. Okay? So strong investment required. Technology can help big time there, specifically mobility. I mentioned that a 10% increase in mobile penetration leads to something like a 1% GDP growth. Ask yourself, Africa's been growing at 5% per annum for the last 10 years. 1% of that, 20% of the contribution comes from one sector, which is mobility. The impact of mobility. I believe Africa, while it has physical infrastructure challenges, can be very, very strong in the digital infrastructure space. Kenya is a great example. Half the GDP growth is coming through the digital space here right now in Kenya. Very progressive governments, very progressive laws concerning the entry of digital technology into the various sectors. I believe in Africa over the next decade, every single service offered from a physical building in the past will in future be offered over the air. The challenges of innovation in today's world are bipolar. Consumers want the most features at the best possible price. Consumers want packed features in a simple manner. Consumers want the ultimate in complexity, but want to handle it in the simplest way. So managing that bipolar challenge is going to be one of the big things that companies will really look at. Those bipolar challenges will lead to a lot of complexity. And simplifying that complexity is the job of leaders in every organization. Simplifying that complexity which arises out of consumer bipolar needs. That's what we're going to see in Africa also. Are you leading innovation or are you following innovation? They're two very different games. When you lead with innovation, when you're the first, whether you're a developer, whether you're a company, whatever you are, when you're the first, what is required is a lot of education. And the energy of the company to spend time and effort behind educating what this innovation is about is critical. When you lead innovation, education is absolutely important. When you follow innovation, somebody is already there. You're coming on the back of his or her way. When you follow innovation, what's important is your point of difference. Why are you different from somebody who's already innovative in that area? And after the point of difference is the speed, the responsiveness. How fast are you? If you look at the history of companies over the last 200 years, and the companies which have failed companies over 200 years, they display two big characteristics. One, arrogant leadership. So the first lesson would be, leadership, if you want to be innovative, has to be humble, stay rooted. Second lesson, inability to learn and unlearn. These are the two big lessons why companies have failed. Inability to learn and unlearn. So it's very important that if you want to be innovative, you need humble leadership, and you need the ability to learn and unlearn both from success and failure. Both from success and failure. Over the last 20 years, I've tried many innovations in many categories and sectors. Okay? I'm absolutely proud to say half of them didn't work. But we learned a lot from it and didn't make the mistake again. And especially if you're the boss, the signal you give is very important. Quite often, as a leader, how you handle failure is more important than how you handle success. It tells a lot about you as a leader. Okay? Success, anybody can write success. But very few people can take it on their chin and say, yeah, I agree, this is gone, let's fix it. And that requires, as I said, humility and a sense of balance. Innovation does not happen through computers. Innovation does not happen through a process. The Western world expects predictability because we are all serving Wall Street. We're serving the city of London. We're serving Dalal Street. We're serving Shenzhen, whoever it is. Okay. The analysts expect predictability. If you beat your forecast, you're rewarded. Unfortunately, innovation doesn't work like that. Innovation comes with fraught risks in it. Okay? And the only way you can make innovation more relevant and successful is if you invest in people. If you're a small company or a large company, you have to invest in people, you have to invest in the skill set and the education of the people. It's very important. You cannot have innovation by chance. Okay? Process for innovation is a big debate. A lot of people think that you can processize innovation. I believe process is an enabler. Finally, it's intuition which gets you great innovation. And that intuition happens when you are absolutely thorough with the consumer, the customer, and the data points. That intuition does not happen in a black box. Okay, so my submission from my own learning, process is good, but does not deliver. Process enables innovation. Process enables you to do the checkpoints. But finally, people, their skills and intuition plays the biggest role. Innovation must make their life simpler than what it was yesterday. Whatever the definition might be. It must make life simpler for the company, for the customer, and for the consumer. If you can think of that definition like that, how do I simplify things and make life easier for these constituents? Then we are on the path to innovation. So that's all I had to say, ladies and gentlemen. And summarizing, Africa is one of the biggest opportunities, I believe. A continent blessed with immense natural resources. But a lot of the work of the natural resources is at the start point today. Africa needs to participate in the full value chain. The African consumer, again, fantastic demographic for the African continent. Very young, the cheetah generation, George Ayate's expression. Very young, very hungry, upwardly mobile. Okay? 3 concurrent growth paths. 60 to 61%, the frugal innovation. Middle class, 331 million people. And the high-end value creation. All three are possible in Africa. They were not possible in the previous growth economies of China and India. China and India didn't start there, thanks to the mobility revolution and ICT impact here. Impact of mobility, more than 1% on GDP. If the continent is growing at 5%, 20% of the growth is coming from there. Infrastructure challenged, but digital infrastructure can be a big boon for Africa. So that's all I had to say. Thank you very much, and I look forward to participating in the session.